What's up, everybody? Today we are talking about boat RV storage. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything in between. Now, we want to talk about why, the actual opportunities that exist in it, existing, how it's performed, a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to get into some numbers here. Now, times are always changing. The asset class is changing, and that's happened a lot. So we're getting an overview. We're going to talk about some implementation items and things to do, but remember, this changes with every single scenario. But before we dive into any of that, guys, please, could you like, subscribe, comment down below if you guys are loving this information. This is what helps us, right? The YouTube gods. It appeases them, and we want to appease the YouTube gods. So get that done, and then we can get started. All right, we're set. Now, I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because so much interest has been in boat and RV storage for good reason. I mean, the sales numbers for boat, RV, campers, all of that is just astronomical right now. We have seen a year over year, and this is in May, okay, of 2020 to 2021, right? We've seen increases to the tune of like truck campers of 140%. We've seen towable RVs at 79% increase. We've seen everything from like mini type campers to RVs at 75+%. The industry's booming and it's on a tear, and nobody has places to store all these items. We just hear it over and over again. So should you do boat and RV? What's the opportunity really like? Well, we're going to talk about here the good, the bad, probably the ugly too. So let's get started on the good, because that's where we all want to get started. The demand is there, right? I mean, the demand is huge. So in most places, it's underserved. Now, the question on though is how you build, how you operate them. This is where we start to get into the other, maybe not the great, right? It's not necessarily that it's a bad thing, but we're in extraordinarily high prices for everything. Land, cost of materials, building. Generally speaking, those large units get a lower square foot in revenue than you would traditional storage. And by lower, I mean a lot lower. If you're parking a huge RV, you can't charge $2 a square foot, because if so, that RV space is going to be worth so much that nobody will ever pay for it. So there's this in between. Now, because of that, what that meant is that a lot of people have not built any boat and RV storage or parking. The reason being is it doesn't generate enough capital lots of times to make it worth it. Or if anything, it's just a poor use of capital. Now, I say this, but let me phrase. I am currently building boat and RV storage, okay? And there's opportunity too. So the key is to understand the good and the bad and figure out where the opportunity lies and how you take advantage of it. When we're looking at this over-increased in demand, it's important to know a few things. The demand itself has to do with obviously the increase in sales, but it also has to do with the way that we treat our properties, our neighborhoods. Most cities won't allow you to park boats, RVs on the side. Most HOAs won't allow you to do it either. So it's not only the fact that they're selling a lot, it also has to do with the regulation around what you can do with boats, RVs, campers, everything else. And the restrictions are tight. We don't want to see them all over the cities. That benefits all. Generally speaking, it's an easy thing to understand. I need a certain type of unit. I need traffic inflow, outflow. I need to be able to park, whether that's covered, whether that's total enclosed, whether that's opening, right? It's not a difficult asset to really understand or get your head around. But there's lots of competition popping up. And where we've seen the hybrid here is this. It's a new kind of space almost that is popping up and existing. And these are full service shops. They store, they do all the work on your RVs, they store it over the winter, they winterize it. If you got a problem, if you've got a flat tire, anything like that, it's a full shop. And so you pay to store there, but you also pay for the full service. We see this a lot in first-tier markets and a lot in markets where people are buying $500,000 RVs. Well, if you're buying a $500,000 RV, you're spending a lot of money to take care of that thing. I mean, that's more expensive than most houses in the United States. With that said, this new industry that has arisen to cater it does compete with traditional storage. So understanding how these businesses are fragmenting in the market and which customers go to use certain types of storage is going to be very important for your success. This changes a lot on any given market. In some markets, boat and RV sales are really, really high. In others, they're not. We look at traffic flow, utilization, along with the total demand. Where are people going? How are they storing? How are they using it? What's the average sale? 20,000 or 200,000, right? These things will change what the buyer is willing to pay for and what they'll do. Here's the bad. The bad is associated with not only the revenue per square foot, but it's also associated with the land needed. These are huge spaces. They take up a lot of land to get not a lot of units on. So the cost, not just your revenue per square foot, but your cost per square foot is really expensive when it's tied up into the land. You may have open parking or just covered parking, but traditionally speaking, those things don't get a lot of revenue. And cities don't like them. They don't want to see. So that means the prime spots where people actually want to park, where they want to rent, most of the times the city's ordinances, city council, they're not going to let you put open or even covered parking. They want it completely enclosed. So RVs, boats, everything can't be seen from the public eye. That increases then, once again, your cost to build. This becomes the trade-off. How much utilization is there? Now, the next side with it is occupancy numbers and flow. Generally speaking, banks don't want to loan as much on RV boat storage. A general rule to follow, which makes it easy, if it has wheels, it can move. So we see occupancy fluctuations in normal markets across boat RV storage. Summer, everybody pulls it out, you have a drop down in occupancy, then fall, it goes back up. We've seen a plateau effect of these changes. The reason being is because people know if I don't keep renting through the off season, I may not have a space to get there. That is not normal though. So normally we have large fluctuations with this type of rental. It's very easy for people to move. They get in their car, they drive away, and they stop paying. So because of that, occupancy can vary. They are more sensitive to rates. So if you increase rates and they get ticked and they have a better option, they pick it up and leave. Once again, why demand is so important. If they have options and they're cheaper, it's really easy for them to take advantage of that and leave you. Now, in really high markets and tight markets like we're in, there's not a lot of options, so we don't see people doing that. But those are some bad things. Other things, people are driving through your facility, they're breaking things. You've got to have huge drive aisles, so it's once again the utilization of the real estate tends to not be as good. All right, so that's the good, the bad. Now let's get into the ugly. The ugly is not complicated, but you need to understand the history of this space. When we're looking at demand, it's really easy for us to take a snapshot of today and just allocate that demand snapshot across time. But that doesn't actually work. If we look historically speaking, in the United States, when you're talking about RV sales, the fluctuations are huge. In fact, they're massive. When you look at credit recessions that really affected Main Street, like 2008 or other ones, what you see is this industry, the RV boat sales and everything, gets slammed. And slammed is an understatement. You're talking 32%, 30% year over year, 4 straight years until it picked up again. But the total amount of RV units shipped was 384,000, roughly, in 2005. It took all the way to 2016 to get back to those same RV sales number. Now, since then, we have just exploded, and every year has been higher than that ongoing. And when we say higher than that, I mean, we're talking double in the next highest in the previous 10, 15 years. So a lot, right? They're selling a lot. And this has a lot of reasons why. It has to do with baby boomers. It has to do with reallocating to homes. It has to do with credit, how easy it is. It has to do with change in preferences, travel, all of those things. Now, the question is it sustainable? Is it not? What you need to look at is overall demand. How much revenue per square foot can you get? When we see these downturns, which we went through, and we had boat and RV during these downturns, it was really hard to charge anything for that space. So when building boat and RV or getting into it, you just need to be ready and underwrite for fluctuations in the economy that can affect you. Now, if you're in a really, really high demand area where people are going to pay really, really high prices and there's just nowhere to go, that may not even be a problem. You may sell through, it may not be an issue at all. But that is the danger and where I look at. Because once again, you have a huge crash. I'm not going to pay $500 to park my RV there. They walk in, turn the car on, and they leave. That's the good, the bad, the ugly. Overall, when looking at these product types for all of these vehicle-like things, there's a huge demand. Lots of people are getting into the industry to service it. So understanding what the city is doing, the county is doing, what they're approving will be very, very important. Understanding utilization and traffic flow. If you build a product or you buy a product that has bad access, it's not easy to get in and out of, people aren't going to pay a good premium for you to get into it. You need to look at these RVs and you got to think, this person has this huge RV. How do I get in? How do I park it? How do I leave? How do I pay? All of those things. Traffic flow is so important when dealing with this asset. So guys, there's a few of my thoughts on building today, what it looks like, where this part of the industry is going. Huge potential, lots of opportunity, but at the same time, we also have to realize we're at the top of the top, and we are at the top of RV and boat sales. We're also at the top of prices. You just need to be aware of it and underwrite for that. I hope this helps. Thanks, everyone.